Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Now then, Six Nations week is upon us. We have Keith Wood there. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
We are very well. And Andy Dunne has popped into studio. Hello, Andy Dunne.
Hi, how are you, Joe?
I'm very well. I should let people know we have a special prize running all week before I forget to do that. We are giving you the chance every day to win rugby jerseys, signed rugby balls and signed team pictures, all with thanks to Vodafone Ireland. And crucially, if you are one of the daily winners, then you will also be in with a chance of winning tickets to all of Ireland's home games in the Six Nations. That is all of Ireland's home games in the Six Nations. All you have to do is keep an eye on our Twitter page, @OffTheBall, for a chance to win. So good luck with that. Keith Wood, Six Nations 2020. We're getting old.
We are getting old, yeah. That's for certain.
We have a new...
It's pushing.
Go on, sorry.
It's pushing on.
That was a hell of a pause
20 years, yeah, Pinterest pause. 20 years of Six Nations, which is kind of amazing, really.
Yeah.
I was there at the start of it, and I can now watch it from afar, which is no harm.
Well, it's funny. I mean, we really are casting our minds back, but I was reading Brendan Fanning yesterday and he was reminiscing about Italy's, obviously, introduction into the then Five Nations, and they burst onto the scene with that brilliant win over Scotland at home, first day out, and everyone thought, wow, what have we got here? Unfortunately for them, the brilliant team that caused you lots of trouble had largely gone as the 21st century ebbed along.
You didn't have to smile. I can see your face when you said that, Joe. They did. They caused huge trouble. They were an extraordinary team in the mid-90s, actually. And from sort of 92, 93, 94, they had an incredible run of victories where they beat us 3 times, I think. They beat France, Argentina. They kind of beat whoever they were coming up against. They were a huge, big, powerful pack of forwards. And Dominguez, they had the most extraordinary goal kicker. I mean, he was a real old school, kind of, you'd almost say typically Argentinian type guy. So it wasn't a traditional out half, but he was a traditional kicker of a ball. He was a soccer player as much as anything else. He was phenomenal, and he could put it over from anywhere. And yeah, I read Fanning's piece. There was a bit of a delay before the good idea of getting them in came in, and the team that beat Scotland on that first weekend were all over the hill, and they did it on absolute dint of passion and pride in their jersey, but it was unsustainable for that group to continue going on, and to be honest, it hasn't really worked very well since.
No, it hasn't, is the truth, to be fair. So yep. Ahead of 2026 Nations, we Andy, I think if we're looking for broad themes, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the games this weekend and the Irish team, but we have, on the one hand, a new cast of characters, which is always nice. It freshens up the thing, you know. We're post-Gatland, we're post-Schmidt, we are Galtier now, we're Franco Smith with Italy, and then also there is arguably an improved degree of openness about this thing. England will be very strong again and are justified favourites. France seem to be finally, without wanting to jinx it, showing signs of getting their act together very soon. And then we have Wales, the Grand Slam champions, who everybody seems to assume just won't be where they need to be post-Scotland. And then we have Ireland. So there is an openness about the tournament and there is a freshness about the various faces we'll see in the coaching booths.
Yeah, I think France have England and Ireland in Paris. I think Woody's good personal friends with Galtier. I could be wrong, but are you, Woody?
Yes, I am indeed, yeah.
Well, he strikes me as a very cerebral, intelligent bloke. I think, not to dispute, I didn't know Brunel either, but there's something very reassuring about Galtier's background, his insight, and I think he's an ideal choice for the circus that's gone on in French rugby for the last couple of years. I think he was a really trusted general as a captain. He was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant player in terms of tactics and strategy, and his execution was excellent, but it was more, I think, as a tactician and a strategist was where he was most powerful and influential as a player. So I think that's a dangerous combination for everybody else. The two home, the way the fixtures have fallen for them, and then this guy's input. They've always had the raw materials.
Well, if we stay on France for a moment then, Keith, because obviously we're going to give the bulk of the time to Ireland. So Galtier, you can give us a sense of him. The interesting appointment in many people's eyes as well alongside him is Sean Edwards. And if he could get that defence up to scratch, it would be very promising for them. The headline news from their squad, it's a 42-man squad which has 19 uncapped players and just one player over 30. One player over 30 in a 42-man squad. And all the, the likes of Intimac and Ramos and Dupont, Fakatau was in, Teddy Thomas was missing last year. The talent we know about. We're talking about a lost decade from a Six Nations point of view, really. Fourth in 2013, the wooden spoon in 14, fourth in 2015, fourth in 2016, fifth in 2017, third in 2018, fourth in 2019. Really, this feels like the first time they may be a bit of a factor again in quite some time in this competition.
I would hope so, which kind of sounds as if we're going against ourselves. But I played rugby because of France. The way they played, I wanted to be Serge Blanco, which was never going to happen for a variety of reasons. And I thought he was truly magical. And the manner in which the French team played in the 80s that I grew up watching was just extraordinary. And we saw a bit of a change under Laporte, trying to bring in a level of discipline, confused discipline, I would have said at the time. And then there's a reaction and counter-reaction, nearly as only the French can through all that period of time. So Brunel was brought in very specifically to steady the ship. And he had capacity. He has done it before. He was an international coach. This was all good. I think they knew pretty early that this guy wasn't going to be in there for the long haul. And what they've brought together, Sean Edwards is an incredible selection as coach because he's a winner. He delivers all the time. He is obsessive. And also he doesn't brook any argument with anybody who disagrees with him. So that, in terms of defence, is extraordinary. Galtier is cerebral. He also would brandish a fairly large knife if he wanted to and needed to. He's ruthless enough. He also has Ibanez in with him. So there's an awful lot of guys with the pedigree of having delivered for France in the past and having delivered on international rugby fields in the past. If you bring those all in together, it could be an absolute disaster for everybody because they're big personalities. But without a shadow of a doubt, Galtier is the boss, and he's the boss for the long term. And I think they're taking a view that they want him there for as long as they possibly can. And he surrounded himself with all the deficits that he, like every other coach, has. Mm. So he's gone for a guy to be a manager. He's gone for a great defensive setup. And look, I think they will be potent because we've watched their under-20 team and we've watched their young guys that have come through over the last period of time, and they've been extraordinary.
Yeah, well, thankfully from an Irish point of view, if they do catch fire, we don't have to worry about them until the final round in Paris, the final day. So who knows where everybody is come, March 14th, I think is when this whole thing concludes this year. Let's start talking about Ireland then. So in a departure with the Schmidt era, the team in Portugal this week, the team will be announced tomorrow lunchtime, which is 2 days, Andy, before the deadline. Warren Gatland occasionally would throw out the team on a Monday or Tuesday, say this is how we're going, this is how we're setting up. But in the main, Ireland, it was Thursday and it was a tightly guarded secret, and the general interpretation I saw from people, even just in the papers yesterday, is, well, it's to reduce a general stress, keeping the team quiet, worrying too much about giving the opposition a leg up. It won't be the difference between Ireland winning or losing, but what we can certainly say is it does suggest a more relaxed tone.
I'm all over this. I think it's really smart. Gatland did it for years, not occasionally. Gatland's been announcing his team before opposition coaches consistently as a Welsh coach, and it has not affected him one jot in terms of his overall success. The concept that opposition and analysts and coaches are going to know exactly what you're going to do by virtue of the fact who you've named is a little silly, because everybody's working on nuanced changes and wrinkles to their attack game as they go on. So and teams evolve from week to week. We see that regularly. Ironically, we didn't see it in ourselves last year in the Six Nations. But I think it's to be welcomed because it stops the silly bugger stuff that was going on for the last year, the kind of passive-aggressive relationship Joe had with the media and vice versa. The bullshit that went on around players' injuries when, there's guys walking by the media room on crutches and they're being told he's available and fit to start.
Yeah.
And he's in plain view of them. You've got to treat people like adults, and I think it completely just disarms that entire stress that has been accompanied with the Irish squad for quite a long period, that whether it was paranoia from Joe, and it certainly seemed like that towards the end, it's a nice way for Andy Farrell to just make a statement and say, I don't care, this is the team we go with. The opposition can see that, but we have a number of things we're going to work on during the week that nobody knows about, and get on with it. And it gives a sense of purpose to this playing group. It gives a sense of relaxation to them. And all the ideas of leaks and players leaking, if you don't want that to happen, be transparent early in the week and get on with it. So I'm hugely in favour of that as an indication of a departure from the old methods.
Yeah, it seems to have been generally welcome, Keith. That notwithstanding, Schmidt's guarding of the team dates back to very, very successful days as well. So it's not like we can say it massively inhibited the team. But do you see any real downside to Andy Farrell throwing at the team of a Tuesday?
No, I don't, and I wouldn't have liked that the sort of cloak and dagger stuff that we had. I remember, I think the things you learn early on. John Redmond was our media liaison guy in the mid-90s, and a smart guy, an old writer from the Irish press days that just kind of shows it really. But he would say, because we were fighting with the press at the time, and I said, look, we're not going to talk to them. They're bloody annoying us. They're kind of picking on some of the guys. And he said, yeah, but you do need them. And you need them to tell the story, and you need them to help tell the story all the time. And without a shadow of a doubt, that got lost in the Joe Schmidt thing era. He reacted badly to people who he didn't respect or didn't like, and when anything would happen, he would use it as a tool, and that's fine. Only that it puts pressure and an extra level of angst in around it. So that doesn't really matter when things are going well, but it does matter when things aren't going well. But I think you'd rather have a higher level of openness for the most part. And for that time back in 97 or 98, when we weren't being as friendly with the press either, it just took a period of time afterwards just to try and repair some of those things too. So look, there are a lot of different stakeholders, and the media are one of the stakeholders within this. They're the ones that promote the game with the team, with the management, with everybody else. If nobody's talking about it or everybody's bitching about it, it doesn't stand up well for anybody.
OK, moment of truth. Let's just rip this Band-Aid off, because I do want to talk to you more so about style of play with this Irish team as opposed to one or two selection issues. Keith Wood, give us your starting 15, the one that you would go with as opposed to the one you think Andy Farrell will go with tomorrow.
I'm hoping it'll be something fairly similar, but I'm guaranteed to always get these wrong, right? So that's the preamble out of the way, is it? I have only one where I'm kind of sitting on the fence. But anyway, if I'm going, can I give rationale as well?
Please.
Okay, I'm going to go with Addison 15, Earls, Ringrose, Henshaw, Conway, Sexton, Murray, Healy, Kelleher, Furlong, Ryan, Toner, CJ at 6, Van der Fleer at 7, and Max Deegan at 8.
Interesting team. Okay.
My bench is Farrell, Ross Byrne, and Cooney. In the backs, Kilcoyne, Herring, Porter, Henderson, and O'Mahony in the forwards. Now, my reasoning for that is we often ended up under the Joe Schmidt era picking a very flexible player in the back line. Now, that leaves Larmour out, and I think Larmour's been very good, so I'll get castigated for some of those, and that's okay. But I like the idea of having almost 3 full backs in the back line, which means you could have Larmour instead of Earls, definitely. But the versatility is actually on the field. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be on the bench. And I think Farrell can cover everybody else. They can shift around a little bit in that element. For me, I still want Murray to play, because I want him to play in a team that plays an awful lot faster, and I want him to see if he can do that but I'd only want him to play for about 50 minutes, and I'd want Cooney to come on and see what he can do with it. I think that's the one where I have a doubt. I think Cooney, by dint of how he's played, pretty much deserves to play, but I also think Murray has done very well in the last few weeks. Why not pick Kelleher at 2 when you have 2 Leinster props beside him and 2 Leinster second rows to throw into it, and also with Max Deegan in there at number 8. I think he's a fine line out forward and has a lot of the skills that Peter O'Mahony has. I want CJ as a heavy carrying forward, because if we get him not running into people and going from depth and trying to get over the gain line, he's incredibly destructive. And the last part was O'Mahony on the bench, because I think we need a captain to end out the game. And too often we put on all our leaders at the start, and with 20 minutes to go, 2 of them are gone off injured, and 2 of them are absolutely shattered and may not be thinking as clearly as we'd like them to.
Okay.
So there's method to my madness, but it's a little bit all over the shop.
No, there's plenty of method. Andy Dunne.
Yeah,
You've crossed things out since you've been listening to Keith Wood.
No, I haven't.
That's not the point of this exercise, to copy Keith Wood's homework here.
No, I have to own up, teacher. I was only adding in, I forgot to do a bench. I did a start. Okay. Well, I forgot to do a forwards bench, so I was adding in things.
Andy Dunne's more of a homework on the bus into school kind of a guy.
Very much, yeah. Dog ears on my copybook and stuff like that. But
right, go on, hit us then.
Well,
sorry, Keith, just to double check, you put in Addison over Larmour on the assumption that Larmour is fit, because.
I don't know if Larmour is fit, and that's part of it. I put in Addison because I think Addison is really class. I think there's a doubt. Is there a doubt over Earls, and there's a doubt over Larmour?
Bits of doubt.
So So no. For me, I want to see Addison play more rugby. Okay. I just think he offers something very, very different. Now, but I was saying Earls and Larmour because both of those have both been injured. I don't know.
Okay. Right, Andy, what do you got?
My preamble is. I'm probably going to get punched or stabbed by many Munster fans. That's my preamble, because there's not many Munster players on my 15. So I'll go from 1 down. So Healy, Herring and Furlong. James Ryan and Toner in the second row. Ian Henderson at 6, Van der Fleer and Deegan at 8. Then John Cooney and Sexton as the halfbacks. Henshaw and Ringrose as the centres. Stockdale and Conway on the wings, and Larmour full-back. And then I went with Kilcoyne and O'Toole as the props and Kelleher as the sub-hooker. O'Mahony and Stander on the bench to complete the 5 forwards, and then, or you could do a 4-4, but I went with 5-3 because I was doing my homework late. And then I would have Addison, Conor Murray and Ross Byrne.
Okay. So there's a few interesting things. Let's take an obvious big call for Farrell to get right. We won't spend long on this because people have talked about Cooney versus Murray for what feels like about a month now. But just, one of the big arguments about Farrell's team selection as well, let's imbue this thing with a freshness and let's plan ahead for World Cups and everything else. It is just worth reminding people again that John Cooney is 30 in May. Yes. This is not an appointment for a World Cup. This guy's going to be 34 at the next World Cup. This is not an investment of playing time in somebody and there'll be a payback in due course. If you're doing this, Andy, which you are, this is an extra little bit of rocket fuel up Conor Murray. I'm not sure he needs it at this stage. His form has improved and he's well aware of John Cooney over the last couple of months. But I suppose you are sending out a message to the rest of the team. Now, arguably, you could do that in various other ways. So why risk upsetting Murray when he's coming back into a bit of form?
Because he's a grown man and he's a professional, and John Cooney needs it. And if you want to grow your squad, you ought to pick people on form when they deserve it. And he absolutely deserves it based on the consistent levels of high performance he's gotten. If you're not picking him now, you're never going to pick him. So Cooney needs it more than Murray, arguably. Murray is very aware that he's hot in his heels. But I think you've got to embrace change based on the last 12 months. And our biggest failing was a loyalty to players playing badly over a prolonged period. Gatland was very, very smart way back around, I think it was 01, 02, when we got a hiding over in Twickenham. And he went and changed the team, which signalled actually a new departure both in his career and in a number of lads went on to be stalwarts for Ireland. We lost 52-18 in Twickenham when he brought in Rogen Stringer, the famous image where they're nestled either side of Galway.
Yeah.
He kept the experienced guy like Galway around them. I think he brought in John Hayes that day, Shane Horgan and Simon Easterby.
Yeah.
And they were relatively unknown. Now, that was the nature of rugby at that stage. It wasn't as keenly followed in the country in terms of on a widespread scale, but everyone we're mentioning making changes here will be well known to the rugby public at least. And I think the likes of Rob Herring going in probably deserves it on form. I looked at him maybe ahead of Kelleher, just a guy who's been around a long time, has served a very patient, it's not an apprenticeship, he's too old to serve that, but a lot of patience and waiting behind Rory Best. And I think he's a really impressive player. Ian Henderson, I think, is a superb athlete and forward and a smart guy, needs to be in the team. And if you're excluding the likes of O'Mahony, Stander and Murray, you are in one sense saying to the others, we need you and we value you. You're giving a definite jolt to those players and you're saying we expect more from you, and simply that's all I think it indicates. And I think it would show that Farrell has the courage to take on that side of his team. And
so, Keith, what about that? In short, if you don't pick Cooney over Murray now, you probably never will, and that's the wrong message.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, I said that's the only one I really argued with myself over. I don't know Cooney. I think he's nearly 30. I also think he's a young 30. This is a guy with not a huge amount of rugby miles under his belt. He is lucky. And I always think you should try and pick a lucky player when you can. He is in a very rich vein of form. I would have said he was playing behind a Ulster pack that was doing a lot of serious damage in the last couple of months, and I don't know. That's why it's very hard to say everything pick like with like. So on the flip of that, I would say that Conor Murray had some subpar performances. I don't know that the style, which is to slow things down, suits. And I also think he spends half his time digging for the ball, and if he was playing behind a team that the ball was being left out or a pack of forwards, it mightn't be the same. So I also think he's come back into form. So I don't mind.
Yeah,
actually.
okay.
I'm not stressed on that one.
Yeah.
I just want to go on to Kelleher over Herring. And we were talking about depth charts a couple of weeks ago. I like what Kelleher shows. I think he's got something in there. If Herring had played 30 games for Ireland and was fighting tooth and nail with Rory Best for it, and he was next along the block and he was very good and he was thereabouts, I'd say yes. But he's not young either. And I think if you are looking for a bit of a change, I'd like to shake up a lot of the hookers and see who are the guys that are actually going to put their hand up to get picked. Because we've said this, it's pretty amazing for Rory Best to be playing at a World Cup at 37, but that's not amazing good for the other hookers in the country. Where were those guys, fighting for that position? Yeah.
Just on your back row, it's interesting. So look, free thinking Andy Dunne has done his thing, and he's got Henderson in his back row alongside Van der Fleer, who everybody will have. But then you both have Deegan. Keith, you've gone for Stander and Van der Fleer with Deegan. A month ago, Caelan Doris was winning all the Man of Match awards for Leinster and probably might have been in there. But Deegan has come on strong in the last month and won several Man of the Match awards. I know you were at the Leon game at the RDS, so you obviously liked what you saw that day in particular.
Well, I did. I put it down as one of the main reasons I really wanted to go to that game, was to see what he was like, in the flesh, as it were. And I just think he's a different type of player. And I watched how Leinster used him in that game, and they used him. And that's one of the reasons for me having O'Mahony on the bench, actually, is you can have Deegan and use Deegan in very similar ways to the which Munster and Ireland have used O'Mahony, which is on defensive lineouts, throwing up in different positions, which is a high vertical jump. And it's just much easier to throw a kind of light guy like that up into the air. I just think he offers something very different. We've got used to a little bit of number eights in the last few years with Ireland. It's a criticism I had for Jamie Heaslip was that when he came on the scene, he used to carry for a lot of yards. At the end of his career, everybody would say, well, his stats are amazing, but he was carrying for less than the yard. throughout the whole season. CJ was the exact same, and he is doing, he's now in the last few weeks going back to carrying more than he used to. And I think we need a heavy hitting guy, and I want him in space to be able to do it, but not to run into traffic to go for a metre gain. That's when we're talking about style, which we will later on, that's my frustration when we were put under huge pressure in the last year, that we reverted to short pop to win the ruck, to go slowly again to win the next ruck, to then have another 5 rucks, and not a huge amount was happening. That frustrated me. And I also think it's a horrible thing for a forward to have to do, is just to run the ball up a yard as an ex-forward. It's just tough work. So I want my number 8 to get over the gain, and I want him to be back in the pocket from kickoffs when the ball is kicked. I want him running 25 yards. I want to see people playing off him. I want to see him be a ball carrier and an offloader. I think Caelan Doris is a cracking player. I really do. I think he's a really fantastic player. Yeah. I just think Deegan's a different type of athlete, and we haven't seen one of those at number 8 for a while. And I'd like to see it in an Irish jersey.
Okay, very good. That's a fair enough point. On the midfield, you've both gone for Ringrose and Henshaw. It's worth stating, and I don't suspect this trend will discontinue. It's a very abrasive part of the pitch. The one time, and it's kind of hard to believe, the one time Schmidt had Ringrose, Aki and Henshaw all available for selection, he went with Henshaw at full-back against England. So we don't actually, whatever about Andy Farrell, we barely even know how Schmidt saw that. So that's going to be an interesting call tomorrow. I do want to move on to style of play before time comes against us. So what I heard from somebody who had a contact or two in the camp is certainly unstructured Leinster-esque play is being cultivated in training, Andy, which will be music to your ears. Do you suspect it's realistic? I mean, or maybe I'll phrase it differently. What is realistic to expect from an Irish performance, say the style is moving in the right direction? Andy Farrell hasn't had that much time with the team, and this is a high-pressure game, even though it's only Scotland at home and they should win. What's realistic to expect from a style point of view from Ireland? What will you specifically be looking at and saying, OK, this thing ain't perfect yet, but I like that they're trying that?
The most obvious marker for me would be Woody alluded to it there, the distance carried by players, and that is usually dictated by how much space you've created before that. And the way to create space is by maintaining width in the field and spreading out the opposition defence. If they spread out, there's more space between them. If they don't spread out, your game is designed to go around them. And it can be that simple. It can be an ability to pass out of the tackle. And in that sense, the likes of Deegan gives that. He gives you a better skill set in terms of linking up with players around him than Stander would. So what's reasonable to expect is that if he's got, and it certainly seems to me that Farrell does have a baseline philosophy that's different to Joe, and if he's got that, he's got to select the right players to suit that philosophy. So a Stander selection doesn't wash with a game that requires more width and link play. Stander has been a warrior, and he's done thankless jobs to the best of his ability, in my mind. But the idea that we go into an international season again with a number 8 who carries, 30 to 40 times, but gets an aggregate metre carry score of less than 100 metres is an indicative of same, not different at all from last year. So I think it's very reasonable to expect a improvement in the style of play based on the last year, but it's the other areas of the game, the defence, the discipline, they're all very important. And the other side I would say is Farrell's beliefs and style seem to be very consistent with Lancaster and Cullen, and the vast majority of the selection is probably going to be Leinster anyway, so there's not a discernible difference in styles from the Leinster guys going into the Ireland camp all of a sudden, and there's a real pragmatism to doing that because they've been very successful so far this year. So I think if he's been, I hope he's been smart and practical about his selection, but it fits that new departure in style.
And are you so militant about it that if you saw Stander you'd be worried? Because I would think there is still just a reality about the game that you need lads who can carry the ball when things get a bit sticky.
You do, but I think that's, You've got Healy, Herring, Furlong, Ryan, Henderson in the same one, and Deegan is a good ball carrier. You probably don't. Van der Fleer maybe and Toner probably the least combative ball carriers in the 8 certainly that I mentioned there, and Woody included a lot of ball carriers in his. I just think, unfortunately for CJ, what he represents more than what he's capable of. He represents that very belligerent and stagnant style that Joe, I suppose, reverted to when pressure came on, and I think we just need to move away from it.
Keith, the style, what do you want to see from Ireland in general terms then before we go?
Yeah, I just don't take that one that he represents it. I think he had to play it, as I think Jamie Heaslip had to play it. And that's why I put him in at 6, actually, was to give him an opportunity to build up a head of steam, because I want him getting over the gain line. I want his yards to be hard and heavy yards that cause a bit of destruction on the opposition. But from the rest, I think we're pretty much aligned. For me, it's funny because what style, how do you go about through style? My wish is that at the end of every coach, you want the next coach to be slightly different. You don't want it to be very, very similar. And that could be a philosophical approach. So you could say, look, we're not going to have everything incredibly structured. We want people to see what's in front of them and play what's in front of them a little bit more. To feel as if they have more ownership in what they're doing. I've go back to very early days of kind of rugby, serious rugby for me. We won an All-Ireland League with Murray Kidd as coach. It was incredibly formulaic, incredibly. And after a couple of years, people found us out and we didn't enjoy it, and you were pretty much kind of, it's almost like a marionette, and you have somebody pulling the strings even as a puppet. But we changed to Andy Leslie, who was an all-black guy who was the most relaxed man that ever existed on the planet. He loved rugby, every single part of it, but he loved it with a smile on his face. And his whole philosophy was go out and be yourself and smile. Now, I know that can't happen today in professional rugby, but I can tell you in terms of a mindset, guys were rushing to get out onto training because they were loving it. They were having a bit of fun, and they were, so we've had the most successful period of time under Joe Schmidt. But it's been tough, and even though it's the guys' jobs and everything, and that we've had a tough year on the back of it, you'd like to see the guys play with almost a little bit more joy in it. And if we're talking about style, and I don't know what, that comes across almost as incredibly bullshitty, but still, I'd like to see us go out and say, yeah, that looks like a team that's enjoying the fact that they're playing together. And it isn't taking short little pops for the forwards, because that's hard work now to do that for a lot of time, I have to tell you.
Yeah, okay. Well, the clock has come against us. We'll have to talk England and Wales in a bit more depth across the next few weeks. So in the meantime, Keith, thanks so much. Andy Dunne, thank you for coming into the studio. Cheers. Good luck.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.